Hello, hello. Okay, so I was listening to something that brought up some things for me, and I was like kind of taking a look at some of my notes and thinking, great little topics to start on. So, alright, let's see. Okay, I feel so dumb because I'm chewing gum. I don't know if that's appropriate. Okay, life reviews and people experiencing knowing why they need to come back in an NDE, a near-death experience. Okay, first off, there's a lot of supposed NDEs out there. Very few negative ones that are actually medically documented as NDEs. A lot of people out there with maybe bad drug experiences or whatever that think they almost died or had a scary experience or whatever that described a scary NDE, but very few that are actually medically documented. So that's something to keep in mind, because we can have a body experience where we almost die and maybe you're not conscious, but you're still attached to what's going on in the body and the mind. And think of it like this. When you're super, super sick, how many maybe had a sick child or helped somebody who was really sick and had a fever especially, and they're tossing and turning and they have a bad dream? Intuitively, you know that the bad dream is probably connected to how they're feeling in their body, right? Their dream is just, our dreams are a representation of our vibration. So if your current vibration is sick and scared and panicky or feeling really crappy or whatever, you may have dreams that kind of resemble that feeling, that energy. It amplifies your feelings. So on another rabbit trail, so if you have a dream and you're trying to figure out what it is, the best thing to pay attention to in the dream is, how did you feel? What were you feeling? Were you feeling like you had to get away from something? Did you feel like you couldn't win? Did you feel like you were positive, like you're just blissful and having the best time of your life? And did that reflect your recent energy? Because most of the time it amplifies how you're feeling. So it is giving you a message on how you're feeling, how you're vibrating, and what you create, because there is no resistance in the dream world, right? You just create from whatever information it has in the mind to create from. So applying that to an NDE, if you are having a really scary experience where it feels like you died, or maybe even if you did have a near death but didn't completely die, then your mind, if still attached enough, right, even if unconscious, your mind may make up really scary, the scariest scenario you can think of, which might be a hellish experience. So you have to keep that in mind. I really, really like to study the documented NDEs in hospitals by scientists in colleges and things like that, because those people who actually completely left their bodies almost all have this very similar experience. And a life review doesn't happen for everybody, but it is usually something that just is, yes, it's like you're everything at once. You are, like, say you see a flower, you're seeing the flower, and you are the flower, and you're experiencing the flower from the outside and the inside, as it is, as you are, like all of it. And so when you have a life review, it's something similar to that. You kind of feel what the other person's feeling, you feel what you're feeling, you're experiencing it, you're witnessing it. But at the same time, life reviews brought understanding. They were there to help us understand not only how we affected other people, but why we ourselves did it. So even though we have remorse in what we did, we also have understanding now of why we did it. And so we can have grace for ourselves, and that's a growing and expanding experience. So when you come back, you have greater understanding, so that not only what it does, but why you did it, so that you don't need to do that again, because now you have understanding of where that came from, right? So it's a good thing, right? Okay, so that the whole point of being here is to grow and expand, right? What else was I going into? Oh yeah, so as far as getting the message of you need to return, it seems to always be a choice, but if you need to be here, they will really amplify why, the people here, all that kind of stuff. But the big thing that people come back learning is, one, that they're loved, that dying is not a scary thing. You don't have to worry about the other side. You might be afraid of the experience of dying because it's painful, and maybe you don't want to leave, and all that kind of stuff. But to fear what happens after that, you don't need to do that anymore. So you have a message that comes where you just know that you're loved, but also that our only mission in life is to love and be ourselves, because we are loved. And in that, we automatically love others because we are love, right? When we understand how to love ourselves and that we're loved, we understand others and how to love them, and that they're also loved, so that we can trust that love is going to show up. Source is going to show up when we move in love, because it's in alignment with source energy. And what is source? Source is energy. Source is life-giving energy. And all of this is just me and what I've learned and experienced and all this kind of stuff from my journey, and nobody has to agree with me, and that's fine. I'm just letting you know my views. So if it does align with somebody, it might give them some words or help them wrap their minds about it, or something to think about. Whatever it does, it does. But I'm not saying anyone needs to believe like me. This is just me and my opinion and how I believe. So the way I like to look at source is two ways I like to describe source. One is life force energy. It is the energy that gives us life. So everything that is living, alive, has this energy flowing through it. And another way I like to think of that is, and we can block and allow that energy to certain degrees. So another way to understand that is like source love, source energy, that life-giving energy is a river, and it always just is. It always is. It's never anything else. Okay? But why do we experience turmoil? So I like to think of it like a river. Source is always flowing life-giving energy to us, love and all of that, okay? But even though that river never stops being what it is, never stops flowing to us, never stops being available to us, we can stick boulders in that stream, we can build walls in that stream, we can build castles in that stream, we can dig our heels in and try to resist that stream and make a huge mess. And you know what? That feels uncomfortable. It feels like it puts you in a sense of dis-ease. And when you resist life energy in you, you can start to have dis-ease in you. Disease, right? You can, when you're out of alignment with that flow, that love, when you're resisting it in different ways, because part of love is free will. You can't have love without free will, right? So part of love is free will, and we can resist, and it hurts and it sucks and it causes chaos in our lives, And the more we resist being in alignment with our highest selves, with source love, with what we know, the bigger and bigger this chaos becomes, the longer we don't allow that life energy into it and that love into it to heal it and bring it back into alignment, right? Most blocks are fears and beliefs. And that's really unfortunate because the enemy is, I don't think, a literal thing as much as it is, okay, how do I explain that? I think the enemy is more lies and illusions than it is have actually any power or substance. It just only has what we give it. Only thing it can create is our resistance to our own alignment, to connecting with source, right? By giving us lies and illusions that we can believe. And the unfortunate part is that we don't always know something is a lie or an illusion because we're very disconnected now from paying attention within ourselves if something feels in alignment or not. So even information that can be confusing, like a mix of truth and lies, could be really confusing. But if you really feel into it and feel into what does that mean? Does that mean I have to like hate somebody or be afraid of something or blah, blah, blah? You know, if you really feel into that, that doesn't feel in alignment with our true selves to hate or to be afraid or all of that, right? So we have to think of that. We have to think of that when we receive information and examine it in that way as well, right? I always like to say source is always there. Source is always seeing our highest selves and the highest selves of others. And source is always looking at the answers and is excited for everything that's going to become out of the contrast that comes because we have free will, right? But if source is looking that way and we're looking this way at all the problems, right? We're gonna miss looking through source's eyes. We're gonna miss source through our blocks and resistance. We're gonna miss source's inspiration towards the answers and the solutions and the things new that are becoming out of the chaos, right? So that's really important. Let's see. Yeah, so the main message people get when they're on the other side, or the main revelation that they come back with, is that they're okay, that they're loved, source has their back in them, embracing and loving all that they are. And we already have everything in us. And as soon as we get in alignment, we can flow. So I did talk about some of this in my last video as well, but just kind of going into some other subjects a bit here too. If you'd like to hear more about that flow and rewiring the brain, because we also have these physical bodies that we're in, the machines that we're in, and they also have their own wiring in the brain, in the body, in the muscle memory, in the nervous system, and there are ways to help us rewire that as well that we have to be aware of so that we know we're not just our bodies, but we can help them along with our revelations, and that takes time, so don't beat yourself up, right? So I talk a lot about that in my other video. Okay. So, I strongly believe I had the revelation of, in my own really dark place at the time when I got a lot of these revelations. I really believe, I'm just losing it, that when we you know how Source only sees us, like Source sees me as I truly am. When Source looks at me, Source knows who I really am, knows my highest self, outside of all the fears, outside of all the blocks, outside of all the beliefs that are not in alignment with truth that sets me free, right? Source knows me outside all of that and is always pulling out and inspiring us towards our higher selves and who we are, because that's what Source sees, right? And that's how we call it out in each other, by the way. We see it. So I believe when we are also not in these bodies, on the other side, maybe even before we come here, we, being a part of Source, also see people in their highest selves. And when we pick our parents even, we see a part of their higher selves, and we see how that's going to advance us in our desired expansion and becoming that we want while we're here, right? Because when we expand the whole. And we also know that there's free will here, and that the people we choose might have gifts that we desire to expand from and learn from, but that they also have free will and may not choose those things to be their highest selves in our coming, when we come into this life with them, right? Whether we're born to them or whatever. And so, but we also know, like, even if we have like a memory wipe or whatever, we still kind of have a knowing, even if it's not in our brain organ yet. There's still a kind of a knowing, right? Especially as children. And, you know, as a kid, it's so simple because we have love in our hearts, especially for our parents, right? Or whoever raised us. As a small child, we really do love, and we don't understand why are people being out of alignment? Why are people being mean or abusive or angry or overly scared or whatever? We kind of know in our gut that that's not in alignment. We kind of wonder, why are they being like that? Because something in us kind of knows that it's not right? And so I know that when I came into this world, into abuse, that I was never alone. Like, I always had Source with me, talking to me, like helping me understand why they are the way they are, why they're doing what they're doing, helping me love them, helping me, like, I always saw when they were being who they truly were. And so I was always like, well, why, if I know who they are, so why are they also being like this and doing this? And it doesn't make any sense. Why aren't they just who they are? Why don't they know that they're loved? Why don't they know that they're okay and that they're enough and that they're beautiful the way they are? They don't have to be angry and all this kind of stuff, right? So Source was always with me, teaching me and helping me understand and have grace from the very beginning. So I was never alone. But I was on a fast track to learning, because we can either learn through them being who they are and seeing that as a great example, or we can learn from them being not who they are and maybe have that free will within ourselves to choose, like, wow, I'm never going to be like that. Or to understand it in a way that we aren't like that, and that we can move forward from it because we have understanding. If we want to seek that understanding, we will get it, right? So, in a way, again, I guess this is just my way of also describing why I don't believe in karma. I believe in purpose. And I believe that we come here in that way, knowing it could go either way, but that either way it goes, it can still provide what we need to move us towards our purpose or expansion, if we choose to not be stuck or continually get unstuck or have understanding. Do you know what I mean? And it's going to be a lot easier for some than others, definitely, because this body gets wired and it's really hard to overcome, but awareness is the first step, right? So, okay. Just going to look through this a bit. Yeah, I don't think that we come here and make contracts to suffer. I really don't. I think we come here to expand and enjoy life, and we weren't part of bringing heaven to earth is the unfolding revelation of the love of God that we're all supposed to expand in, right? That's bringing heaven to earth, because when we know that, it expands love and joy and bliss and that confidence, that knowing, that lack of fear within us towards love, right? So there was some really deep thoughts here. Yeah, if we come here right from the beginning, let's just say we have to have a memory wipe, okay? And we come here right from the beginning. We have to, understand that we started from scratch with nothing but the gift of nature. And really, I think everything started from nature. A lot of the ancient stories and religions were even birthed out of observing nature and observing the stars and, thinking something's out there, something's running this. How do we make it work for us, right? How do we make the rain favor our crops instead of drown them out or dry them up? Maybe if we give a gift to this god, or sacrifice, or something, or you watch the stars and you study them and you're trying to understand, how does this work? How do these seasons and cycles, and let's track them and let's write it, because back then we used to learn through stories. We used to learn through stories and art that helped solidify information in our heads. And that's so important to know. A lot of the stories we read are stories of the stars and everything they go through. And so there's the stars, there's the seasons, there's watching and observing nature and learning from nature and watching how it works, and all of that is super important. But if you think about it, if we're here for the very first time and we have our planet and we're learning and we're trying to figure it out, this whole adventure is a big long adventure of God trying to reveal itself to us, right? Through nature, through the stars, through love, right? How do we function both? Wow, everything here says it loves us, and everything here functions in a certain way because we're also part of nature, and how do we function and be in alignment with that, right? I like to say, I have only a few rules, and that is it in alignment with source love? Is it in alignment with my highest self? And is it in alignment with nature and what is natural? Those are questions I ask myself all the time, which are really good questions. Okay. So yeah, I think that's where a lot of this was birthed from. Love and resistance. I also wonder, it's if we have a full revelation of Source and who we are and the powers that we truly hold in being in alignment and believing love, right? Like if we believe love, we would do things so differently. One, we'd have more faith in the loving desires planted within us, and we'd have like more faith that God had our back, but we'd also have more faith that God loved others. And so if we stepped out in love, God would show up to back that up too, right? That, I think, is what faith is, and that unveils itself to us as we're faithful, right? And then the more it unveils itself to us, the more confidence we have in that, the more knowing, the more surety. But we have free will, so it does start with us. Source is already there. It's already done its part. It's just us coming into alignment with that truth that sets us free. So sometimes I wonder if, if we got far enough into this expansion, if we truly knew the fullness of how powerful we are and love is, would we even cease to exist? Right? Because fear exists in the flesh. So would we just become energy? And so do we need to exist in order for love to exist? Because think about it. We're here, and source is just energy. It's energy, it's particles, it's life-giving energy. But can it love or be loved without us being here and being in the illusion of separateness? There's the illusion of separateness, so that we can love and be loved, and so that we can expand the whole through contrast. And is contrast not birth because we have free will, and that's a part of love? But that we're expanding all the time in our revelation of what love and God and source is? We are, even though like our world is going all over the place, right? Like we're all on our own adventures to expansion. We're all on our own adventures to finding out who God is, what love is, like who we are, all that kind of stuff. If we're even awake to that or curious about it at all. Some of us have really strong blocks that don't even allow that curiosity to come forth, right? And curiosity kind of opens the allowing of source. So even when Jesus healed people, there had to be a certain level of curiosity there, a certain level of belief or faith that wow, I heard about this guy and he's healing people and I'm curious and I'm hopeful, and that opened a door for experience, right? And that's one example. So I guess it's like, how far can we separate ourselves from truth? And how much can we be in resistance to life-giving energy? And how hard can we hold ourselves in fear and in beliefs that are out of alignment with source? And how much chaos and dis-ease can we create separating ourselves from the things that bring us life, so that we start to feel death and chaos, right? Like, yeah, hold on. Sorry. So I'm going to take care of my face a little bit because I'm having a bit of an allergic reaction to something today. So, yeah, so those are just some really deep thoughts, deep things to think about. Like, would love be able to exist and become without the illusion of separateness, and without free will? And so are we causing a lot of the chaos? Especially for a reflection of Source and Source consciousness, and in that we are creators, then are we not creators here of both good and bad? I'm not saying that it should be here, and I do think we could live in a much higher level of heaven on earth, right? Than we are, and that hopefully we continue to, and that we all play our role in expanding into that and helping the whole expand into that. And this will become more and more heaven on earth, because even Jesus said heaven is on earth, it's in our hearts, right? And I think that hell is also here too, which I kind of talked about in my other video, because hell exists in fear, and fear only exists in the flesh, right? We're only afraid in the flesh. We're afraid of pain. We're afraid of seeing other people's pain. We're afraid of starving, freezing to death. Whatever it is we're afraid of, including burning, which that's a whole other thing I also explained in the other video when they talk about burning in hell and blah blah. So if you want to know more about that, maybe go see that one. But just some deep thoughts on what I said, like how much of the chaos exists because of us, right? And anyways, I hope that this just encourages you to really examine if you trust how loved you are, and trust your alignment with your highest self and the love of Source that is outside of any fear, right? Then how would we expand? So anyways, I love you all. Hopefully this isn't too long, shorter than my other video. If you have any questions or would like to dive deeper on any of the things that I talked about, maybe just put it in the comments, and I will take note of that and see if I can wrap my words around it in a deeper way if we want to like kind of unravel it even more. And yeah, I hope you guys all have a beautiful evening, or a grand rising, or good afternoon, wherever you are. Blessings and God bless.